Hey everyone, after a little bit of a hiatus waiting on some parts to come in, we are back for another Supra video. So in this video, we're going to be building the Supra's new radiator. So I have a bell core here. It's 3 1/4 thick, and then 15 by 16 or 15 by 16, whichever way the dimensions go. I can't quite tell by just looking at it here. We have the radiator core. We have a 1 3/4 inch aluminum U-bend that will be used to house these 16 ORB weld bungs here. We have a number 10 ORB weld bung that will be used for a drain on the radiator. And we have a couple of pieces, or a few pieces, of 60,000th thick aluminum sheet metal. This one will be for one continuous end tank, and these two pieces will be for the split end tank, as this will be a dual pass radiator. And then here, where I have some drafting done already, as you see, this will be the fan shroud. So the fan shroud I can't finish right now, as I need to order in a riv nut tool and all that jazz, but we can get the tanks made. We can get them welded to the core, and we can finish where we can build the water inlet and outlet, and obviously get the drain placed. So the first order of business will be taking our sheet metal here and prepping it, getting it drafted on, getting the right surface finish on it, and from there can make a few cuts, get these pieces broke so that way they're bent into the shape they need to be to go on the core, and from there we can start welding and get this thing, get it going. So let's get after it. Alright, have all my drafting done, as you guys just saw. And this is one of the small tanks, but the X areas will be removed, leaving 3 1/4 and 2-inch flanges, I guess, for each one of the tanks. So it will get folded along this line, this line, this one, to make a box sans one side. And obviously there'll be 2 of these small ones, and then one of the large ones. And if you notice, the large sheet is a little bit narrower. I noticed as I was in the middle of drafting that it was cut wider than it needed to be cut, so had to trim it, not a big deal, and it is the correct dimension now. So I'll go ahead and I will pop these 4 corners off each one of these sheets, and at that point in time we'll be ready to bend, tack, weld, and these will be about ready to weld to the core. So the one other thing that I did do with this is, on this side, as you guys saw, I put some nice blue paint tape down, and that is to protect the nice 320 grit DA'd finish that I put on all of the exterior portions of these panels. So I don't want to put a nice surface finish on, get them all scratched up, so the paint tape will protect that a little bit, but I digress. I'll go ahead and get these corners lopped off, and we can keep moving forward. Alright, now we have all of the tanks tacked up and formed and ready to become part of the radiator. So let's take a look at them. So, I guess let me organize here. We have our 2 small tanks for the dual pass side, and we have our 1 large tank on, I guess, what would be the receiving side. So, as usual with my sheet metal break over there, it doesn't do perfect. You can see it bows out a bit in the center there, but this metal is thin and malleable enough where that isn't a huge issue. So what I will do now is go ahead and weld up the 4 seams on each one of these tanks here. At that point, they're all solid. I don't have to worry about breaking tacks or anything along those lines. And then I can figure out the inlet and outlet and the bleed port, or the drain port rather, for this for these tanks. So let's go ahead and get to it. And there we have a fabricated radiator. So we have our dividing line between the top and bottom tank on this side. Obviously that one is solid, and I went ahead and got the fitting tacked on. That'll be the drain fitting, and that will end up being on the driver's side. The passenger side, I have my center holes drilled for the hole saw, but due to the OD of the fitting and the thickness of this material, I don't want to drill those holes just yet. I will wait until all this is welded together, so I'm not contending with a short section right here that will make the weld act funny in that area. So at this point, we are ready to weld this radiator together. So let me get geared up and get back under the hood, and we'll make this radiator all one piece. We have a radiator that's essentially complete, at least the body of it is. It's sitting down mocked up in the car, so let's take a look at it. So this is roughly where the radiator will sit in the measurements and feeling around that I did. The top of the upper core support sits essentially flush with this piece of weather stripping right here. So as long as I keep the radiator pretty much parallel with the top of the core support, I should be good. What I will end up doing is notching these seams right here to move the radiator a little bit more towards the front of the car to free up a little bit of space on the intercooler tubes. So these are about the minimum widths of the tanks that I could get away with and still fit the number 16 fittings on. And I like to keep uniformity between the sides of both of the tanks. So it fits in there pretty well, and I will end up having a little bit more space on the hot side once I redo this intercooler tube like we talked about before. But all in all, pretty happy with it, and gives me a good base to build off of. So obviously the next thing to do will be to mount this, and I need to order a riv nut tool to mount the radiator on the top side, because I'm going to attempt to build factory style mounts. And the factory mounts, if you guys have seen them before, there is a little single bolt flange that comes out to kind of a hook shape that sits on the top of a essentially half piece of tubing. So I'll try to do those on the top, and then on the bottom I'll do your standard rubber radiator grommet, round grommets that have the post on the bottom of the radiator. So that will take care of the mounting for it, and we'll be good there. So obviously we'll also have to build the fan shroud, which I'll need the riv nut tool to do that as well. But I don't have the tool now, so can't make any more progress, unfortunately. But it does look pretty neat in there. So definitely happy with how it came out, and it will certainly be tight to the dry sump drive, but it kind of is what it is. If it's a little bit too tight, I can always do the 240SX thing and take a notch out of this upper core support and sink the whole thing even more forward, and that would alleviate that issue. But that's a bridge we will cross at a later date. So with all that said, I think that's about the end of this video. As always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and we'll see you next time.